Good morning. Ayin Beis, volume 3. We are on page 1445. Discussing that neshamas mekablim ma'av yirshalahem. We say that the souls, though they're rooted higher than angels and higher than all levels, actually, they receive their aviyira through the Havaya or through the malachim, that this is in Zman HaGolus, which obviously is going to tells us that not in Zman HaGolus, it's a different type of transmission. So the transmission goes through mimitzoyim, as he says, through interfaces, through intermediaries. To explain, and he says, like it says in the pasuk, Hine anechi shelach malach. And Hashem says, I'm sending a malach before you. And Rashi says that malach was Matat. That's the name of the malach. Sheshmoi kishem Rabbi. His name is like the name of God, name of his master. We're going to learn more about that later. So to explain, what is this idea of God sending an angel instead of God coming himself? So to understand this, began to explain that Matat is called Nar. Nar means a young person. Nar Yisi Gamza Kanti, Sara Shalelim. That's Sara Shalel. So Matat, Sara Shalelim, the minister of the world, meaning the Malach that's a appointed minister. Later we're going to learn it's called Chanoich. Matat is also called Michal. In some places, he's going to mention that later as well. So we know now that it's the level of Nar, but it says Gamza Kanti. So the fact is, there's actually two levels in Matat. Beis Madregas, one, two levels, and we understand that from Yeshua is also called Nar. It says V'Nar, Yeshua ben Nun Nar, he was a young man, Nar being young, and he had two levels. Yeshua, as he was a student of Moshe, Lo Yomish Mitech Oil, he never left the oil of his master's teacher. So that's how Yeshua is a makabel, a recipient. And then there's how he became a mashpia. So when he was a makabel, he's not a mashpia at all, completely receiving and absorbing. And then there's the other level, how he becomes after Moshe's passing, he becomes a leader of his own, standing now on his own feet, though Moshe ordained him. Now, you may think that the second level is higher than the first. He's now a mashpia. So he says, "V'agam de lecheda madrega beis ili b'Yeshua." Though the second level is seemingly an ili, Yeshua reaches a higher quality level, being a mashpia. Manigas Yisrael v'haya mashpia lehem. Ach be'emes. However, in truth, the first level is a higher level. And how do we understand that? We understand that from Malchus. Malchus also has two levels. There's Malchus that goes down to Biy'a, becomes the Reish of Biy'a. It's Mashpia to the worlds of Biy'a, Yitzir Asiyah, becomes the Keser of Biy'a. But there's Malchus as it is in Atzilus, where it's like Makabel. It's the lowest level of Atzilus, receiving and absorbing the 9 spheres above it. And that's Amunah Kol Zeis, V'Kayim Aleinu, that Amalchus, you say Amunah Kol Zeis is in the feminine, and Kayim Aleinu is in the masculine. The two, Makabel and Mashpia. Which is like the Razal say, the Pirkei Avos, that a person should be Zon of Larayas, a tail to lions, the lower level of a higher level, then better than Reish L'Shalim, the head of a fox, the head of a lower level. So the Zon of the lower level is Malchus of Atzilus, and Reish L'Shalim is like Malchus becoming Keser of Biy'a. So as a result of that, so we see from that the higher level, even though it's a state of makabel receiving, but it's receiving from higher levels, and that's why it's higher. Like the sun, even though the sun's purpose, sun gives life, radiates the earth and all that inhabit the earth, but the light within the sun is even greater level. In this case, when we speak about the sun is compared to Zah. So it's not just Malchus as it's encompassed in Zah, but even Malchus, not Atzilus, as a separate entity in Atzilus, also is being receiving from Zah, and that's higher than the light, so-called outside of Atzilus, as it shines downward into Biy'a. Okay, and this brings us back to Yeshua. That Yeshua, also these two levels. Yeshua was received from the Shemesh. Moshe is compared to the sun. Yeshua received from him, and that's a higher level from when then what afterwards he became a Mashpia. And now it comes back to Matat. Let's go back now to Matat. V'chein Benar de Matat. Remember, the Nar Yeshua is compared to the Nar Matat, the young man, that has two levels. And he brings from Ma'ir Eir. The Ma'ir Eir says the Matat is called Yitzira, a Yitzira, and also the Malchus as it manifests in Biy'a. Which means Matat as it becomes a garment for Malchus to be Mashpia into Biy'a. But then there's Matat as it's a Pamim Eila B'Atzilus. That Matat is Eila B'Atzilus, like we said, Matat elevates into Atzilus. And that in the parenthesis, yes, because Matat is Chanoich, and Chanoich had the ability to elevate upward. And then when Matat elevates upward, it's called Nar, like Lo Yomish Metecha El, because he's completely receiving and absorbing that which is above. And the second level, and the second level of Matat is when the Nar comes down below into Biy'a and Nifsik V'meno Er Atzilus. So now he's not in a state of a steady flow coming from the teacher to the student, or from Moshe to Yeshua, from Elikus of Atzilus into Matat. Now Matat is Nifsik, and then he's called Zakon. I'm sorry. So no. That's it. We stopped there. He didn't call it Zakon. He just said two levels in Nar. And that's where we stopped. And I'm going to continue now from learning. So this is a summary of what we just learned yesterday. So I'm going to continue now from the line that begins Er Atzilus on 1445. And he's going to bring a different interpretation about the two levels of Matat. Right now, Nar is the higher level, the Makabel, like Yeshua, when he's standing and absorbing and only receiving from Moshe. We're now going to explain the Pardes, and let's continue reading. We'll start reading over Pardes. That's the Ramak, Ramoshe Koraviro, who was a contemporary of the Arizal, but he was older than the Arizal. Ma'ir that we just quoted is from students of the Arizal. So in Pardes Be'erech Matat, in Pardes in the Erech, the entry called Matat, Kosav, the Kashem Makabel Mepchinas Malchus Atzilus Nikra Zaken, that when Matat receives from Malchus of Atzilus, it's called Zaken, the elder one, the sage, not Nar. V'zeu shekosav Nara Yisi Gam Zakanti. He says that's what it says. Nara Yisi. I was a Nar, I was a young man, and Gam Zakanti, I've now also aged. That's what the Pardes says, which is opposite of what we learned before. Before we learned Matat, the higher level is Nar, like Yeshua, Nar, La Yomish Metech El, that when it's receiving from above, it's called Nar. He didn't say that when it goes down below, it's Zaken. That was not said. But now the Pardes clearly says that when Matat receives from Malchus of Atzilus, is called Zaken. The Isa B'Zayar, Pinchas, Daf Reishid Zayin Seif Amid Aleph, and it says in Zayar Pinchas 217, the bottom A, at the bottom of page A, the Solik L'Sabe V'Ishad Kimilakadmin. Sabe in Hebrew is Zayda, is Zaken, grandfather, Saba. So he says like the solik l'sibi, it elevates. Solik is from the word istalkus, that when it elevates toward the sabe, toward its sage, toward the elder one, its elder one, his grandfather, essentially, v'sader k'melakadmin. And then it becomes adorned, comes adorned as it was in its earliest stage. K'melakadmin, from the original. Kadmin from the word like original. And what that means is that kasher ele ba'atzilus, and when this level is elevates to Atzilus, nikra zokan. That's clearly what he's saying here. Solik is an aliyah, not Yerida, not as Malchus comes down through Matat and the Levush garment of Matat into Biy'a. It's when Matat elevates into Malchus of Atzilus. Ele ba'atzil nikra zokan. V'hainu shu b'chinas gadlus. And why is it called zokan? Because a zokan is a state of maturity. We say nar and zokan, we learned this earlier, referred to yesterday in the class, that nar refers to a younger man, a younger individual, so less mature. What is maturity? Maturity here is basically moichen de gadlus, moichen de katnus, is different levels of divine energy. Just as when you say a younger person has less experience and less sagacity of an older person, a zokin is misha zokin misha kana chachma, zesha kana chachma. It's someone that's acquired the knowledge experience of an elder person. Elder person is always considered to be more respected because they're on a higher level. So zokin is a state of godless. Why is it godless? Because it's elevating in Atzilus. That's a state of godless. So it's the same idea. The first level of matat elevating, however, he's calling it zokin, not nar. We'll soon discuss, can this be reconciled or not, but he's bringing a different interpretation. It doesn't change, again, the Havana, the understanding that matat is oila, just what is it called? Is it a state of nar, like a young person who's in a state of receiving, a makabel? Or is it called zokin because he's receiving and going into a state of godless? He's receiving from the zokin, so to speak. According to the Pardes, when matat goes down into Biy'a, nikra nar b'bchinas katnus. Then it's called nar b'chinas katnus because when it goes down, Malchus has to diminish the flow. When matat goes into Malchus, then it's receiving a greater area from Atzilus. When Malchus and matat have to go down into Biy'a, then it goes down into a diminished state. So it's called nar. So clearly he's not reconciling the two. He's just bringing another interpretation. The truth is, it's not really a contradiction. It depends what you're talking about. If when Yeshua, for example, is receiving from Moshe, and then Yeshua as he's teaching, so if you're talking about Yeshua as a person when he's a teacher, compared to his students, he's a god, he's the mashpia. But when Yeshua is lo yomish metecha el, and he's a complete makabel, a recipient, a receptacle for Moshe, so he's elevating to the shemesh, to Zoh. And then he's a far greater state because he's receiving a far greater energy. So therefore, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking from the bechina of the student, so Yeshua is a nar then, he's a makabel. But on the other hand, he's a zokin because he's receiving a far greater revelation. Whereas when you say that nar is above, and when you say that the zokin is when he, so basically both elements are true. That's the bottom line. So two aspects to nar is nar in this context of being a complete recipient and no entity of your own, like a total bittul, or nar is katnus as matat goes down into Biy'a. So two different interpretations and two different angles. He doesn't really elaborate. He's going to say, Eich sheyiyeh. Bottom line is, however you explain it, this way or that way. And here are definitely two different explanations. Hariyesh b'matat beis madreges. So whether you call the first level nar and the second level zokin, or the first level zokin and the second level nar, like I said, he didn't say explicitly in the first interpretation that zokin is it goes below, even though you can imply that. In other words, when it's mashpia, it becomes like a zokin. When it's a makabel, it's like a nar. Here he's talking about what it's makabel. So when it's what it's makabel of a zokin according to the Pardes, And what it's mashpia is like a nar because it's katnos. So however you explain it, hariyesh b'matat beis madregis. We see from the above that matat has two levels. But who? And what are the two levels? Mashalapomim nikra. Oh, okay. The two levels that we spoke about, Mekabel and Mashpia. And the difference in the two different interpretations, what are they called? Is called Nar and Zakan or Zakan and Nar? Okay. Before I continue, any questions? Now he's going to further elaborate. So he says like this. These two levels of Matat have two names. You'll say sometimes it's called Matat Mem Tes, which is short for Matatrin, as was mentioned. And sometimes there's Mitat. A Yud is added. Mem Yud Tes. So that's what he's going to say now. But who?
A quick question. The Indian of calling Matat Nar in the second interpretation, I guess is the Pardes, is because it's Yored, it's coming down, and the Zaken is because it's going up, it's receiving from above. Was that how he explained Zaken, but he didn't explain Nar in the second interpretation?
Yes, he did. He said b'chinas katnas, Nar b'chinas katnas, because it diminishes the flow.
Because it's below, it's in Biy'a, it's below Atzilus. Is that the Indian?
I just explained that when it's an Atzilus, it's receiving a more mature, a more elevated. And then he says, Nar b'chinas katnos. Read b'chinas gadlus and b'chinas katnos. That's the difference in Zaken and Nar. So when the flow goes down from Malchus into Biy'a, that's what I just explained.
I'm in a hospital, but I don't have the text in front of me. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry.
Everything all right?
He had a heart attack, but please continue.
I'm sorry to hear. Who had a heart attack?
My father.
Oh. Okay, well, hope everything's good. We'll learn in honor of his Refuah Shleim.
Emmanuel Halevi ben Rivka. Thank you.
Emmanuel Halevi ben Rivka. Okay, complete Refuah Shleima in honor of this. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sitting here in one of the hospital procedure rooms. I apologize for interrupting. I'm just trying to do the class. I don't want to miss it. Anyway, please continue.
Is he a Zaken or a Nar?
I have to ask him. He's a Nar at heart, but his body is telling him he's a Zaken.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, please continue. Thank you for answering my question.
Okay. So the two levels of Matat is Vuhu, Mashalapomim Nikra Mitat. Sometimes we find that this angel is called Mitat with a Yud, Biyud with a Yud, Ulapamim Matat below Yud. And sometimes it's referred to Matat without a Yud. So these, he says, are the two levels. He's going to explain. The Isa b'Pardes Shara Biy'a Perik Daled. The Pardes, in the Pardes it says, the Pardes of the Ramak. Same Pardes he referred to, different section. In the Shar, in the section called Abiyah, Atzilus Biy'a Tzir Asiya, chapter 4, Perik Daled. What does he say there? The B'chinas Malchus Kashi Klula, Mikola Esesphiris Nikri Yud. Well, Malchus is Klula. When it encompasses within it from all the 10 spheres, that's why it's called Yud. Yud is the 10 spheres in Malchus. Ukishemasla b'matat, ozay nikra mitat biyud. And when it manifests in matat, then it's called mitat with a Yud. Ukishu mashpia lamato nikra matat below Yud. Okay. So, yeah. So we learned that Malchus needs to manifest the Matat to be able to come down into Biy'a. But there's two stages. When Malchus is receiving all the 10 spheres within it, it's with the Yud. And that's why when Malchus manifests the Matat then, as it is in Atzilus, then Matat is with the Yud, indicating the 10 spheres within it. But then, when Matat goes a step lower, when Malchus goes now into be Mashpia, into Biy'a, not as it's receiving the 10 spheres, Mashpia lemata, then it's called matat without a yud. So matat is referring to the lower level of matat, and mitat is referring to the higher level, which according to the Pardes is the higher level is zaken and the lower level is nar. Okay. So this is all coming to explain, remember, the malach that Hashem sent, that Rashi called matat, the malach that Hashem sends as that type of intermediary, which now we're going to return to the beginning of the topic from the beginning of the paragraph on previous page 1444. All this was a type of introduction to explain what matat's role is, as it serves as an interface between malchus and Biy'a. So there's matat as it's malchus, as it's receiving mekabel from the higher levels, and then there's that's mitat, and matat is as it manifests, as it descends into Biy'a. Any questions before I read on? Now we're going back to the pasuk in Mishpatim. It says, "Hine, anechi sheleach malach lefanecha." I am sending a malach lefanecha, a malach that will guide lefanecha before you. Hashem says, "Hainu matat." As we learned before, Rashi says that's matat. He also brought the Gemara in Sanhedrin. K'meishu mekabel Atzilus. This is matat as he's receiving from Atzilus. Tahainu b'chinas al yeinu shabay. So this malach that Hashem is sending, we're talking now the higher level, as it's a makabel from Atzilus. So now he's going to explain the context of this verse. So when you go to the chapter, and I'm actually going to, let me take a chumash here to make sure you have the whole context properly. 1 minute, please.
Yitzchak, what was the name? I'm saying Tehillim every day, so I want to include your father's name.
Thank you so much. It's Emmanuel Halevi ben Rivka. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So give me a moment. I want to just find it in the parsha. Okay. So I'm looking at Mishpatim now. Just to give you the exact place, 29:20. Here it says like this. So Hashem is talking to Moshe, telling him about the Jews entering into Eretz Yisrael, into Israel. But then he says that when you are in a state, a higher state, when you don't have sin, so I myself will lead you. However, when there will be transgression, which means Zman HaGolus, excuse me 1 second. Excuse me. Okay. So Hashem is referring, the pasuk is referring, what will happen? So Rashi says, what is Hashem talking about? Kan shenis basru shasidin lachte. Hashem is informing that in the future, because of the sins of the people, and they'll be exiled. So the question is, how will the Shekhinah be able to dwell among them? The Shekhinah says, I can then not, so to speak, be present with you in the same way. When that happens, so that's what the pasuk is referring to. So I'm not going to forsake you, but because you're not a full keli, we spoke about this in my longer overview. When we're not completely aligned to the divine will, so God doesn't, God forbid, forsake us, but the divine cannot fully manifest directly. So then Hashem says, I'm going to send the malach matat. Yeah, matat. To do what? L'shamrecha baderech v'laviach el hamokim asher hachinesi. To protect you and to bring you to the place that I have designated for you. So that's what the pasuk is referring to. This is based on Rashi's commentary. He also brought from Sanhedrin, and that's the malach matat. Okay, so now he says like this. So the Rebbe Rashab is now going to explain. Now that we've known that matat has two levels, there's matat as it's mekabel from Atzilus, when it's called mitat, and then there's the second level, where it's called matat as it goes into Biy'a. So he says like this now. That's matat, mekabel matzilus. That's the higher level. It's still a malach. You still need to have matat. However, it's the higher level of matat. Because when you look in the pasuk before, what does it say? Before, Hashem is talking about what will happen in Golus, what will happen due to the sins and the concealments. Havaya helech lifneim. That God will go before you. And here he says, Hine anechi shelech malach lefanecha. That's what compels us to understand that there's a difference. Before it said that the Eibishter will go before you. And here he says that he's sending a malach before him. So which one is it? So clearly it's distinction between one. And there it says Havaya, helech lifneim, Havaya atzmei. That's Havaya himself. Not through any garment, not through the levush of matat, of the malach. In this etzemer Atzilus. That's the very core area of Atzilus, not as it goes into Malchus that manifests in Matat, even the higher level of Matat, the higher level of Malchus. And also according to what it says in Medrash Rabbah, V'Hashem hu ubez dinei. So we learned this earlier. That we talk about that the Eibishter together with his Bezdin, together with his court. So there you have both Hashem and his Bezdin. So if you recall, this was back in the Medrash. When he started speaking about the Medrash, who Bezdine, let's just go back to that. That was on page, that when the whole who began, the whole discussion of who. Give me a moment. Yeah, the Sanhedrin. Yeah. Going all the way back to page, second here. One minute. Going to find the who Bezdine. I know it's on page 1413, but I thought it was
because it says Ve Hashem, the Vav makes it a base deal.
yeah. Just one second. Let me find it inside. I'm going to find it now. Oh, yeah. Okay. On page 1411. On page 1411, he brought the Medrash. Just want to see. He's talking there about Hamufla, Mufla Sheba Sanhedrin, who Bezdine, Medrash Rabbah Hashem, who Bezdine. Yeah. Bezdine, he said, was the Sanhedrin, like the Einei Ha'eda, and who, and who the Eibishter is like the mufla, that's even higher than that, like Moshe. A minute. Ishin Eina, yeah. So he's saying, okay, so even according to the Medrash, where you have Hu and Bezdine, so here you have not just the Eibishter alone, you have the Bezdin also. So it's like a third level. You have the Eibishter himself, Hashem Atzmei, that's Etzem Eir Atzilus. There's Malach Sheleich Lefanecha, that's Matat, Malchus as it manifests in Matat, in the Levush. Still Malchus within Atzilus. And also to what it's according to what it says in the Medrash, that it's Hashem and his Bezdin, Zeu Gamkem B'chinas HaMalchus. Shalei B'chinas Hislapshus Klal. So that's a level where it's Malchus, but it's not with any Hislapshus. So basically 3 levels. It's either Eir Atzilus Atzmei, basically Zoh, like we learned earlier, Kudsha Brichu. There's the way that there's Hu Bezdine, that's how Kudsha Brichu is Shchina. Malchus, I wouldn't call it Shchina. Malchus, but not with his slapshus. And then there's Malchus as mislabish and matat. And that's the Malach Shalech Lefanecha. So it's either Hashem himself, the Malach, or Hashem and his Bezdin, and his Malach, so to speak. I think that's what he's trying to say here.
Then.
Okay.
The Malach.
One second. Let me finish the whole subject and we'll stop for questions. I'm in the middle of the subject. Please, let me just explain the whole thing. Okay. That is all before a chet, before the sin. So then you have Hashem Atzmei. That's what it says earlier. Hashem Havaya Helech Lifneim. That Havaya Atzmei will go. Or Hu Bezdine. There's no Hislapshus yet in Matat. Well, after the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, and they were no longer fitted to the Gilead Eliki, because that's what happens. What does sin do? As we've learned a number of times, it disaligns Aveda from the word Havara. It's like a displacement. If mitzvah connects us to the channels of life, what is the difference between health and lack of health? The question of connection. When the flow, whether it's blood or other flow of life, when all the channels are open and completely aligned with whatever is flowing through them. But through Aveda, through sin, what happens? You somewhat clog the arteries. You clog the pipes. So the flow cannot be completely aligned. You're not completely aligned. So the flow of Elikus, as it's Mechin Zavai the Atzilus, is not possible. They're not Rui. The Keli has become polluted. But at the same time, the Eibishter does not forsake his people. As much as we have somewhat blocked the channel to have direct access to Havaya Atzmei, nevertheless, Hashem is still running the show and still wants to protect the people and wants them to go into Eretz Yisrael and conquer the land and build a Beis HaMikdash. But they're not in a place, they've already become polluted, so they're not in a place where they can directly get straight from the source code. It has to go through a slapshus. So that's what he says. Al-Kain Rotza Hashem, and that's why God desired Sheyeh Kol Kibush Eretz Yisrael, that the entire conquering of Eretz Yisrael, which is what this pasuk is talking about. Laviach Chol Amokim, L'Shamrecha B'derech Laviach Chol Amokim Asher Hachinoisi. So what does he say? V'gam Binyan Beis HaMikdash. So the entire conquering of Eretz Yisrael, and also the building of the Beis HaMikdash. V'chol Gili Hashchina B'Neshamis Yisrael, and the entire Gili of the Shechina and Neshamis Yisrael, he wants to still to be intact. Hakol Aidei Malach Matat. That's all going through. That's what the Eibishter wanted. It should go through the Malach Matat. That's the Sheleach Malach Lefanecha. Liyesei b'bchinas Atzilus al kaponim. But it's not Matat as it's going into Biy'a. We still have Matat as he's at least in Atzilus, the higher level of matat. B'bchinas nar layomish. The nar, that's layomish. It's not separate at all. It's not Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not the pure Havaya as it's undiluted. It is coming in a garment of matat, but it is matat of Atzilus. So Hashem is basically saying, though you have blocked the flow in some way or impeded the flow coming straight from Havaya, which would have allowed for me, myself, Hashem Atzmei, like he said, Havaya Atzmei, Helech lefanecha. So now I will at least give you something also equivalent, which is through matat in Atzilus. So it's slapshus, you can contain it, but it's still a very high level. Because the level of nar, layomish, the higher level of matat. V'zeu ki shmi b'kirbay. And that's what it means when he says shmi. My name is b'kirbay. The next pasuk, what does he say? So he continues in the next pasuk where he talks about what this malach will do. So let me just read the next pasuk. He says like this. You should heed his voice. Do not rebel against him. Since my name is with him. The pasuk is clearly saying that my name is with him, with matat. Some commentaries explain, just for the record, let me see. Shmi Meshutav by Rashi says. Because matat, the full name matat, and you're not supposed to pronounce matat, and is gematria Shaddai. The gematria of the same name, the name of matat is Elikus, as it comes in the name Shaddai, not Havaya, but the name Shaddai. So that's what it means, Shmi B'Kibi. So the Hainu B'chinas Al Yeinu Shabai. So we're clearly talking about the higher level of matat, canal, as it is in Atzilus, because Shmi, meaning my godliness, is with him. And where is that? That's where Malchus of Atzilus, as it manifests in matat, is encompassing all the 10 spheres. Not as Malchus in matat goes down into Biy'a. So the Malach he's referring to is an intermediary, but it's a high-level intermediary because it has Shmi within it. That's what he's saying. However, okay, I'll stop here. Any questions?
How could you compare, not how?
The story's not over, obviously, but we'll see in a moment. Moshe did not accept this, for the record.
Yeah, Moshe did not accept it. Later,
that's what we're going to learn. We're going to learn in a minute. But don't ask me about that, because that's the next lines.
Later, after Moshe's Istalkus, when Yeshua met the Malach Hashem Tzvois, so the Malach told him, B'mei Moshe Rabcho, I could not come. He did not allow me, but Ato Bossi. But my question is, compare Michael, Gabriel to Matat. Where is Matat?
I said, we've been learning this the last 3 pages where Matat is.
I know, it is Zoken and Nar and everything, but compared to them, where are they? Michael and Gabriel.
What do you mean? It says Matat is the garment of Malchus of Atzilus.
Could you say that Michael and Gabriel are also?
I don't know. He didn't say anything yet. He didn't talk about that. Later, he's going to say that Michael is the level of Matat. But meanwhile, he didn't say anything. Right now, we're talking the Posuk and Rashi. Rashi says it's called Matat. Why? What's unclear? Okay, let's read on. But Moshe didn't want this. He wanted a direct connection to Hashem, not through an intermediary. But Omar, if your face, you God himself, are not going to go. Why? Because Because Moshe was rooted in the Shem Havaya of Atzilus Atzmei, like he said before, the Shemesh, Zoh, U'kamoisha kosav v'shmi havaya loina daiti lehem. Like it says in Pasha Ve'era, that to the others Hashem revealed with Shem Shaddai. But to Moshe Shmi and Shmi Havaya loina daiti lehem. I did not reveal my Shem Havaya to the others, but to you I am revealing. So we see that Moshe Rabbeinu is connected with Havaya. Ula Moshe Yeneda Kenikre Eshalikim, and to Moshe was known Yadaiti, Loina Daiti to the others, but to Moshe was known. Why? Because he was called Kenikre Ishalikim. Baila de Matranisa. He's called a man of God. The Baila de Matranisa, Shuhu B'chinas, Teferes de Zoh. Called Baila de Matranisa means the husband of the queen of Malchus, which is the level of Teferes. Malchus is Matranisa, but this is Baila de Matranisa. So Moshe was on this level. In Kabbalistic terms, it's Teferes of Zoh. This is Havaya Atzmei. That's why it's a connection of Havaya. So he was not happy to hear from Hashem that you're sending a Malach. Even though it's Matat in Atzilus and Malchus, as it's manifesting in Matat of Atzilus, the higher level of Matat, but it's still a Malach. It's still not Havaya Atzmei. So that was Moshe. Ubezer Pasha Vayelach, he adds down the parentheses, Dafresh Pei Gimel Amid Beis, page 283b, Aposukim Ein Panecha Helchim, Gufa de Shimsha Be'ena. Now what's referring to Ein Panecha? What's Panecha? When Moshe said, if your face, Panecha, you're Pnimius, you're very you. You're the Eibishter's face, not just a Malach. Is not going to go. So he says that's the level of Gufa de Shimsha Be'ena. Ba'ina. He wanted to have the Guf HaShemesh, the very source itself, not just a reflection. V'tzorech leimer, shabikesh madrege shalamai legama mashakosav Hashem helech. You have to say that Moshe was asking for a level that's higher than Hashem helech lifneya. In other words, he's saying now a new level, panecha. Because we have the level that the level hinechi shelech malach lefanecha. Lefanecha is a malach. We have the Hashem helech lefanecha, like he said before. Hashem, we said the pasuk Havaya helech lefneya, and then there's the level what he calls here Ein Panecha Helchim, which is Gufa de Shimsha, so it's even higher than Hashem helech. And Moshe received this. He merited to receive it, but it's only Moshe. Yeshua, but in the days of Yeshua, so Moshe wanted to have the Havaya itself, but due to the Chet, they got which is Matat as it's Atzilus. But the days of, now comes the next stage of Matat coming into Biy'a. The Nar of Yeshua, remember, that's Yeshua as he's still receiving from Moshe. So it's a higher level, but it's still not the ultimate level of Moshe himself. Then in the days of Yeshua, Nizgal v'yorad, Chinas Nar Matat Zeh, was revealed. And this level of Nar came down. And that's he's going to talk about in Biy'a. Ata Basi. Now I've arrived. This is already Yeshua arriving. Where? V'nikra sar sova Havaya. Haina kamesha makabel m'b'china shem Havaya Atzilus. This is already now sar sova Havaya. That's already now calling a minister, not Havaya himself anymore. That he is, I think this is the first level, that he's coming, he's called Tzvah, he's the Havaya that's been makabel from Shem Havaya Atzilus. V'Yeshua kibulei seliyes, the Yeshua kashoye b'fnei asma, he nifred b'Moshe kanal. No, I'm 1 second. A little I think I didn't read it correctly. 1 second. So what we have is like this. When Yeshua was with Moshe, so he was like Matat in Atzilus, Malchut Atzilus, receiving straight from the Shemesh. It's not the Shemesh itself. It's not Hashem, the Panecha, Havaya itself. It's Havaya as it manifests in Matat. Okay. Then there's Yeshua. Once Moshe passed away, Yeshua now becomes leader. And that's clearly Yeshua already, as he's a mashpia into Biy'a. So that's how Malchus, manifesting Matat, becomes Matat as it manifests in Biy'a. That's the lower level. But remember, Yeshua is an intermediary because he first spent time receiving from Moshe. That's what he's saying here. There has to be like a comma here. And now he says, like it says, Atabasi have come. Is Yeshua called Sar Tzva Havaya, Rab Shlomo? I think so.
No, the Malach.
The Malach is
Yeshua-
called Sar Tzva Havaya. Oh,
Yeshua saw somebody and right away said, Halonu ato im letzorenu. So
Okay.
the Malach answered, Loi, ato bossi. What is ato bossi? B'mei Moshe Rabcho, I couldn't come, but now I came. Because he
Right.
was Sar Tzva Hashem.
so that's like the Malach, yeah. So he's called Sar Tzva Havaya, the Malach. Hainu Kamoshe Mekawim Chinashem Havaya Atzilus. Because remember, he's coming as he's received through Shem Havaya Atzilus. V'Yeshua Kibbalei say, and Yeshua therefore received him. Why? Because Yeshua is the Yeshua. Because now Yeshua, as he became a leader on his own, he was separate from Moshe. He's not Lo Yomish Metechael any longer. He's still obviously connected, but now that this Malach came and this Malach is receiving from Havaya, so Yeshua received him because V'im came b'chinas matat k'shemekabel matzilus. So what do you see from this? Why did Yeshua need the Malach? Because matat, as it receives from Atzilus, which is the level of the angel, the Malach, Sarsra Havaya, who gavoy b'madrega, is a higher level than Yeshua as he is in Biy'a, as he's leading the people in Biy'a. Al kain kibbalei say. That's why Yeshua, Moshe is the higher level and didn't want to accept a Malach altogether. But Yeshua now has become a Malchus as it manifests in Biy'a. So he's at least receiving and wants to receive from Matat, which has a direct link to Havaya, because Matat, the higher level, is drawing from Atzilus, which is higher than Malchus as it comes into Biy'a, the level of Yeshua. So there you have the whole story of what's going on here with Hashem sending the angel due to the Chet, and how Yeshua is drawing from that level as he manifests and leads in Biy'a. So you have here a number of levels. You have Havaya Atzmei, that's like Moshe in Atzilus. You have Matat, is like Malchus of Atzilus, manifesting in Atzilus, but it's still the higher level that's receiving from Shemesh, from Moshe, from Havaya Atzmei. And then you have Matat, as it comes down into Malchus, as it comes and manifests in Biy'a, Yeshua now, as he's no longer a student, but he's a mashpia. And he, the lower level of Malchus, as it manifests in Biy'a, Matat is receiving from Mitat, so to speak, from Malchus, as it is in Atzilus, which in turn receiving from the higher levels of Malchus itself. That's what he says here. Yeah.
He said that Moshe asked for Madrego shel Mailo mima shekosov v'Havaya hoilech v'nitan.
Yeah.
That is Gufa l'Shimsho?
Yeah, that is because when it says Havaya Helech Lifneim, it's still Havaya. But then he says Ponecha. What does he say? He says the Lashon is he wants the Lashon is what the Meshach Im Ein Ponecha. Ponecha, he clearly is interpreting higher than Hashem Helech Lifneim. Panecha is Skufa de Shimsha, but you know. Yeah. So there's Havaya Panecha, which is what Moshe wanted. There's Havaya Helech Lifneim. It's a lower level in Havaya. There's how it manifests through the Malach, Matat, as he's in Atzilus, and then how it manifests in Matat and Malchus as it's in Biy'a. I see here 4 levels. Maybe even a 5th level, because he spoke about who Bezdine. That may be the Havaya. That's 4 levels. 4 levels here.
B'mei Yeshua Nigala, v'yorad b'chinas na matat zed. That is Atobasi. So in Mei Yeshua Nisgala, what was Nisgala? The Malach, the Matat? Looks like. Because
No, the V'yorad is not the Matat, is Yorad. Well, it's 2 things here. Yeshua becomes the leader. So now we're talking about how Yeshua is manifesting in Biy'a, but he's receiving Mekabel from the Satzva Havaya.
Now Matat is it called, right? That's
Well, he broke it down, Mitat and Matat. It's the 2 levels of Matat. One is Mitat, that's Matat in Atzilus, as it receives the 10 spheres, and there's Matat as it comes into Biy'a.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
And
Rabbi,
you probably didn't have the Kayach to like Moshe. He said, Al Kain Kibel Oisoi. Because
because now he became Nifrad Moshe. You know, when Yeshua is on his own, so to speak, even though Samach Yodov, etc., but he wants to create the link. The Malach serves as the intermediary between the Lakus of Havaya, Moshe, to Yeshua as he is in Biy'a. Like he said, he didn't want Yeshua conquering Eretz Yisrael and everything that came with it was coming with the koiches of the Malach that is drawing the koiches of Moshe and Havaya Be'etzem of Atzilus. That's essentially what he's saying. Yeah, go ahead.
Rabbi, would the Mitat Matat channel, would that be considered what the Chabad rabbis are always talking about, Chitzonius versus the Pneumius, the other channel, where it's Havaya directly into Malchus?
Chitzonius and Pneumius are words that are used throughout. Chitzonius means an outer dimension, Pneumius means an inner dimension. So I don't know which Chabad rabbis you're referring to, but Chitzonius Pneumius simply means outer and inner. So it depends what you're talking about. Sometimes we refer to that. Can you use the word Chitzonius Pneumius here? Only in context of if it says so. He doesn't use the word Chitzonius Pneumius here, so I wouldn't use those words.
Okay.
But in general, anything that's a lower level, a more outer dimension is called Chitzonius. Pneumius is more of an inner level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, where did Moshe not accept this? This is in the Psukim of Hareini Nos Chvedecha, which says that Moshe did not. Where does it say Ein Ponov Helchim, Panecha Helchim? You remember where that says? Rab Shemi, where does it say Ein Ponecha Helchim? Do you know? Is that also Mishpatim or is that later in Kisisa? Okay.
Are you taking other questions?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I have a more Hasidus applied question. So the inyan of whether these discussions in this and the sources, but Yeshua drawing from Matat in Biy'a as opposed to Mitat in Atzilus, and I understand the derivation and all that, but as a practical matter, as it relates to us, well, obviously Moshe and Yeshua are very high madrigas of spirituality, and speaking for myself, relatively much lower madriga. Is Matat? Is he helping me? How's Matat going to channel Elikus to me? If he's channeling directly to Yeshua, like what's it mean for the rest of us? That's point one. Point two is there's one Malach and there's millions of Yidden. Yeah.
Well, let me answer. I mean, this is the whole theme that we've been learning. Every Jew says Birchas Yetzer every day before Shema. The whole theme was that all of us, get the power of these angels, that when you say it, each of us, according to our level, the angels help us draw godliness, even when there's after the chet, sin or concealments of the animal soul, golus, like he's describing here. So the angels are essentially divine forces that are supporting and helping us, siyua, to be able to reach Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the unity that we need to reach, and then V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. So that's the whole context here. Now each one of us on our own level. This is not about any individual. The stories in the Torah are meant to be lessons to all of us. So that's the whole theme of this whole Ayin Beis. The Malachim help us. That even though souls are rooted in a high level, but when they come down below, they're very much concealed, and its challenges are great. And as such, the Malachim help us. So the Matat discussion is a continuation of the discussion of the Malachim that we spoke about earlier.
I understand. Thank you. Yeah, it was just when he's sourcing it so high, it's sort of on first blush, you might think it's not. We can't connect to it, but I understand
everything you can connect to relative to your level. Let's make that as a rule. There's no exceptions to that. Everything relative to your level can be reached. That's why the Torah tells us everything. From Adam, from the greatest, when we read about Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a whole chapter in Tanya where he says that even Moshe, we have a Moshe within each one of us. So Neshama is filled with resources. We have a Moshe within us, we have Yeshua within us, we have the Matat within us, everything exists within us. That you could just... Klal noked biyadcha. That is a klal they can in every given situation. That's the whole purpose of the Torah.
Our neshamas are hardwired for this, is what you're saying.
Everyone has all these levels within them, but the question is what level? Everyone according to their level. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. Where does he say this? Are there any other questions? Oh, here we are. Yeah, I thought so. Moshe Rabbeinu not accepting this is a little later in the whole discussion when Moshe speaks with Hashem and wants to see his face. So Lamed Gimel Tezvav, let's see. Yeah, in Kapitel Lamed Gimel, when he talks about Avi Kol Trubi Al Panecha, so he says like this. Lamed Gimel Tezvav, he says like this. I'm just reading. Yeah. So in Parshat Yisisa, when Moshe is speaking at length with, let me finish what I'm saying. When Moshe is having his conversation with Hashem, this is in order to beg forgiveness for the Jewish people because of the Chet Ego. And that's when Moshe says, Ata imano matzosi chen beinecha hidiani nos drachecha. And that's what he says, V'rei kamcha al goy hazeh, v'yem poni yelchu, v'yem ein ponecha helchim, al talenu mizeh. So what's Moshe referring to? In verse 15, he says, if your presence does not accompany us, and you're only sending us a malach, do not take us up from here. So basically, Moshe is protesting and essentially challenging God, saying, I'm sending a malach. So Moshe achieved it because Hashem said to him, and he showed him, but he showed him, we've also learned that even Ponai in a Yidiyas Hashlila way. And that's the discussion there. Yeah, that's the continuation. So he says that Moshe was asking to see Ponim, and which is the deepest levels. The bottom line is, however, that because of the Chet and so on, we get it through a Malach, but it's still a high level of Malach Matat. And that's why Yeshua, who's already in Biy'a, the lower level of Matat, the lower level of Malchus, is Mekabel, receives from this angel, Satzvash Havaya, because he's channeling Havaya through a Levush, but it's at least coming from Malchus of Atzilus, that's coming from a higher level, that's higher than the Nar or Yeshua Matat as it comes down below in the lower level in Biy'a. So bottom line is we have all the levels here, with Moshe, of course, being the highest level. When Mashiach comes, when the Golus will be over, then we'll be able to access directly, as we're going to learn. But meanwhile, this whole piece, the beginning of the paragraph, was that today, Bizman HaGolus Mekabel HaNeshamas Hayidei Mutzayim. And this is all in the context of the Parsha Mishpatim, and then Moshe's response to that, but it's all about that Malach Shelech Lefanecha. I'm going to still talk about this more in the next paragraph, but I'm going to stop here at the end of the paragraph on page 1445. Any other questions?
There is a whole discussion about how could Moshe said that, why he said that, and also before the Chet Egel, Hashem told Moshe that he's sending a Malach. The Ramban.
So Rashi says because he's being mevaset him, what's going to happen? Rashi says those words. He says clearly that these are the words. Kain is basur she'asidin lachte. It's talking about the future. Hashem is saying, "Lasidin lachte." That's when I will send a malach. That's what he's saying here. Yeah.
Reb Simon, the Rebbe in this week is talking about that when we're talking about Moshe, it's Pashtus of the Moshe, and he brings about Friedrich Rebbe. Yeshua was Moshe's Talmud. He was not the Pashtus of the Moshe.
Yeah, but then what the Gemara says is Pnei Levana. Moshe kepnei Chama, Yeshua kepnei Levana. So, is Pashtus of the Moshe doesn't necessarily mean it's mamish like Moshe. It could be a lower level. It has a Moshe within him, and then there's the Makabel, the Levana within him. That's how I would explain it. Basically, it's like Yeshua had within him the Lo Yomish Metechael, the Nar of Moshe, as a Makabel of Moshe, but he also has as a leader a Moshe within him. But it's two different things. It depends if we talk about Makabel or Mashpia. A Rebbe is Aspusha de Moshe, but at the same time, he's also a Talmud of his Rebbe, right?
The Rebbe is saying Memale Mokim, which means in addition to his own being a Rebbe, he's also having the Keches on the Rebbeim before.
Look, there's a lot of ways to explain it. One is that this Pashtus de Moshe is only after Yeshua became a leader, right? Not before.
Yeah.
That's number one. Even when he became a leader, he still had elements that he was still a Makabel. You always remain a Talmud of your Rebbe, even when you become a Mashpia, a leader of your own. I don't see the contradiction. There's two different aspects going on. And then there's also a Nitzutz Moshe in each one of us. Remember that. So we all have these levels within us, like I mentioned before. But we're talking about in the full-blown way, Moshe is the level of Havaya, Yeshua is the level of, like he says, coming down to Biy'a, and Yeshua itself, there's two levels. Okay.
We're going into Yud Beis Tammuz, and the Rebbe speaks a lot about the Mesiras Nefesh of the Friedrich Rebbe. And the Rebbe is telling us not just it's a story the Friedrich Rebbe had Mesiras Nefesh. By him having Mesiras Nefesh, he gave us the koyach of the Mesiras Nefesh. Like you said, everybody has a shtickle Rebbe in him. Do we become a Rebbe? Chas v'shalom to say that. But we have the koyches, what they gave us.
Right. Yeah. I want to just go back. In Pasha Kisisa, actually he refers to explicitly. Moshe says, in Pasha Yud Beis there, 33 Yud Beis, Lamed Gimel Yud Beis, he says, Re'ei, Vayim Moshe al Hashem, Re'ei ata emer alai, Halas amazeh. He says, take a bit. That you told me take up this people, but you have not told me whom you will send with me. And now he says, so even though you told me send an angel, I don't accept that. Rashi says there clearly, Rashi says like this, I don't accept that. That's what he says, that Moshe did not accept. Moshe is sending a malach. I want you to come yourself. That's what he's referring to. Okay. It's all the chapters come together, Mishpatim and Kisisa. Interesting, yeah. You have to look in the psukim to really appreciate the whole dialogue. So we'll stop here at the end of the paragraph on page 1445. And yeah, Naftali, I agree with what you said. I didn't ignore it. I just realized I wanted to just bring this psukim. So we'll stop here at the end of the paragraph, bottom of page 1445.